The Winds of Winter will kick off with 4 major battles. The Battle of Fire, the Battle of Steel, the Battle of Blood, and the Battle of Ice, the upcoming fight between Stannis Baratheon's ragtag army versus the forces of House Frey and House Manderley, an event that will decide the entire future of the North. Who will win? What is the Night Lamp theory? Will Stannis take Winterfell? And why isn't this battle in A Dance with Dragons? George! This is the Battle of Ice. Let's break down both sides of this upcoming conflict, starting with the Flaming Stag. Stannis Baratheon is encamped within a crofters village in the Wolfswood. It's a small little hamlet with a watchtower sitting between 2 lakes. One of the lakes is filled with islands, the largest of which boasts a weirwood tree. Trust me, this is all very important to Stannis' strategy. The one true king leads a motley army of various groups: 1,500 southern loyalists and sellswords, 3,500 northern clansmen and soldiers, and only 64 surviving horses, all huddled together within an unforgiving blizzard. Some are freezing to death, others have resorted to cannibalism, and those caught eating their fellow man are being sacrificed to the Lord of Light. The odds are very much not in their favour. Let's run down the key players, starting with the Southerners. Stannis Baratheon himself, the one true king, the Chad lemon water enjoyer, the tooth grinder of Dragonstone. He has an unflinching determination to take the North from the Boltons, seize the Iron Throne, and unite the realm against the threat beyond the Wall. He's also a renowned military strategist, boasting victories against the Targaryen forces on Dragonstone, the Greyjoys of Pike, and Mance Rayder's wildling army. Stannis' lieutenant is Sir Richard Hawpe, the Knight of Moths, and one of the Queen's men, Stannis loyalists who have converted to the Lord of Light. Other Queen's men on the march are the glib Sir Justin Massey, the boastful Sir Godry Farring, and Godry's sadistic sidekick Sir Clayton Suggs. Many of the Queen's men encourage fiery sacrifices to please their god and end the blizzard. Now for the Northerners. Before marching down from the Wall, Stannis gained the support of House Karstark, led by the Carhold Castellan Arnulf, and half of House Umber, led by Mors Crowfood. When marching down from the Wall, he courted the Northern clansmen, including Hugo Wull, Brandon Norrie, and Morgan Liddell, and after reclaiming Deepwood Motte from the Ironborn, Stannis earned the support of Lady Sybil Glover and Lady Maege Mormont, whose daughter Alysanne has joined the march. Arnulf Karstark and his son Arthur bring their army to the Crofters village, while Mors Umber and his men do a little trolling outside Winterfell. Oh, and there are a few wild cards. Asha Greyjoy is being held hostage alongside her 2 pets, the friend-zoned Christopher Botley and her lover Carl the Maid. There's also Tycho Nestoris, the Braavosi banker, who brings the rescued Theon Greyjoy and Jane Poole. With this army, Stannis means to defeat the Boltons and their allies and seize Winterfell. But enough of the Flaming Stag. What about the armies of the Flayed Man? Let's run through the key players. Lord Roose Bolton and his son Ramsay sit tightly in Winterfell, ensconced in the blizzard, surrounded by friend and foe alike. Their support from the twins is steadfast. The cunning Sir Aenys and the thuggish Sir Hostine Frey have their backs. The motivations of the Northern Lords, however, are far murkier. It is not loyalty that drives them, but fear. Hother Horsebane commands the other half of House Umber. The widowed Lady Janelle Kerwin roams the castle with some Kerwin cousins. The widowed Lady Barbary Dustin has sworn fealty, as has her father Lord Roderick Griswell, and her brothers Roger, Rickard and Roose. Old Lord Andrew Locke contents himself with gruel. The petty Lord Slate and Stout are also present, and of course, Lord Wyman Manderley himself is handing out pies. We know for a fact that Wyman is plotting revenge against the Freys and the Boltons, but everyone else remains a mystery. There are also some Hornwood men hanging around, although the current head of House Hornwood is unknown. While the Boltons could simply wait for Stannis to starve and freeze outside the walls of Winterfell, the tensions within prove too perilous. Lord Roose sends the quarrelling Frey and Manderley armies to march on the Crofters village and end the threat of Stannis once and for all. The Freys boast 1,400 men, led by Aenys and Hostine, while the Manderleys have 300 soldiers to spare. We don't know who exactly is leading them. Fortunately, we have an important sample chapter to dive into. Theon 1 from the Winds of Winter. Juicy schemes lay within. Nestoris grants Stannis a loan. The king orders Justin Massey and Alysanne Mormont to escort both Tycho and Jane Poole, who everyone believes is Arya Stark, to the Wall. There, the alleged Arya will be reunited with her brother Jon Snow, and Tycho can return to Braavos by ship. Justin will join him and use the new loan to buy 20,000 sellswords. Surely he just needs 20 good men, right? Stannis promises that Justin may marry Asha Greyjoy upon his return, although I'm sure she'd have something to say about that. Before he leaves, Tycho delivers a message from Jon Snow that Arnulf Karstark is loyal to the Boltons. Stannis has Arnulf and Arthur captured and threatens to burn them to death, unless they cooperate, in which case he'll be merciful and merely chop off their heads. How magnanimous. He also discovers that Maester Tybalt of the Dreadfort has already sent a map of the Crofters village to the Boltons. The captive Theon Greyjoy deliriously informed Stannis that Crowfoot Umber coaxed the Freys out of Winterfell and into their pit traps, leading to Aenys Frey breaking his neck. So Hostine is now the commander of the Frey forces, which makes Stannis smile. Unlike his competent brother, Hostine is impulsive and belligerent. Here's a quick rundown of everything so far. Stannis and his ragtag army are huddled up in a crofters village between two lakes in the middle of a blizzard. He sent Justin Massey off to buy sellswords, he's exposed the Karstark traitors, and he's discovered that the map of the village has been leaked to Winterfell. Meanwhile, the Boltons are trapped in Winterfell with a bunch of lords and ladies who despise them. Due to this, Roose has sent the querulous Freys and Manderleys to fight Stannis. The former are led by a thuggish idiot, the latter are completely disloyal to the Boltons. What could possibly go wrong? Now we're diving into true theoretical territory. Let's begin with the night lamp theory. Hostine Frey seemingly has the advantage. Thanks to Maester Tybalt, he knows the map of the area. He could split his army in half, flank the village, and completely crush Stannis from two sides. The blizzard may be impenetrable to the eye, but the Freys can simply use the flames of the watchtower as a guiding light. This is why Stannis must erect a false beacon. If the watchtower fire is extinguished and the weirwood tree in the middle of the icy lake is set ablaze, Hostine may unwittingly charge his men across the ice. We know that the Southrons in Stannis' army have been cutting holes all over the lake's surface, supposedly to catch fish, but perhaps also to sabotage the Freys. Many will plummet through the death traps to their watery graves, and the rest will have to avoid the wrath of Stannis' catapults, which he could build using the forest around him. Those fleeing will be met by Stannis' troops waiting to strike. Meanwhile, the Manderleys will either attack the Freys from behind or stay out of the battle altogether. The false beacon could merely be a burning tree, as I've said, or it could be something more. It could be a sacrifice to R'hllor. Some of Stannis' captives have king's blood, namely Theon and Asha Greyjoy. However, there may be benefit to keeping these siblings hostage, and the treacherous Arnulf, also known as a Karstark, is descended from Stark kings, so maybe this is how he will meet his fate. But this is one simple battle. Even if Stannis defeats the Freys, how can he hope to seize Winterfell and destroy the Boltons? He can't just wait in the blizzard until 20,000 sellswords arrive from Essos, but his army isn't large enough to storm Winterfell either, and he certainly doesn't have the provisions to maintain a siege. He needs to draw the Boltons away from Winterfell in order to capture it, but why would his enemies leave when an army is approaching? The Manus must fake his own death. He will force Maester Tybalt to send a raven to the Boltons, crafting a narrative of death and defeat. Bolton allies will return to Winterfell. The Manderleys, some Stannis loyalists disguised as Freys, and the Karstarks. Arthur Karstark could be threatened with his family's execution and forced to return to Winterfell. An army behind him, a lie on his lips, and Lightbringer in his arms. This would explain Ramsay Bolton's infamous pink letter to Jon Snow. He may genuinely believe that Stannis is dead and they have his sword. No conspiracy is complete without a false flag attack. To lure the Boltons from Winterfell, the Dreadfort must be taken. Not by Stannis' forces, of course, because they're pretending to be dead. Instead, it will be infiltrated by Theon and the Ironborn captives. The Ironborn could be disguised as Karstark soldiers, while Theon could be in disguise as Arnulf Karstark himself. After all, his torture has left him white-haired and frail, so maybe he can pass as an old man. To complete the ruse, they need to bring Tybalt, the Dreadfort Maester. In return, Stannis will promise help in overthrowing Euron Greyjoy and installing either Theon or Asha as the new Lord Paramount of the Iron Islands, as long as they swear fealty to House Baratheon, of course. It won't be the first time a ragtag group of Ironborn led by Theon have captured a castle, but they're gonna need a larger force this time. They need some wildlings. Okay, time to rewind the clock. We know that Melisandre sent Mance to rescue Arya Stark from Winterfell, disguised as Abel the Bard. What if this is part of a larger plot concocted by King Stannis? For Mance to infiltrate Winterfell, wait for Stannis to set up an encampment close enough to Winterfell, rescue Arya Stark, and force the Boltons to leave the castle and retrieve their valuable political asset. This didn't quite go exactly as he planned, but close enough. The next step of his scheme is to send Arya to the safety of the Wall as a signal to Val and the wildlings to march southwards to the Dreadfort. Or perhaps the pink letter is written by Theon at the Dreadfort, hence the pink wax and seal, to provoke Jon Snow into leading a wildling army southwards. The wildlings may choose Jon to be their new king, with Val as his wildling wife. Of course, complications arise. A mutiny here, some stabbings there, but let's say a vengeful resurrected Jon takes the wildlings south, and Theon lets them into the Dreadfort from within. After all, he's no stranger to the secret passages, and this character going from seizing Winterfell to seizing the Dreadfort is quite thematically resonant. Back at Winterfell, Roose Bolton's supposed victory over Stannis will be short-lived. Wildlings have seized his castle. The Boltons, thinking they've defeated Stannis, will leave Winterfell to reclaim their land, giving Stannis the opportunity to take Winterfell, likely with help from the Northern Lords within. This will provide a powerful moral and strategic boost to the Manus, leading to more Northern houses rallying to his cause. Yet he must strike while the iron is hot. His bolstered army will march to the Dreadfort to take the besieging Boltons from behind. Team Baratheon will either face off against Lord Roose, or, if he's been murdered by Northern Lords, murdered by his son, or burned by Stannis himself, against Lord Ramsay. Ramsay may have a low cunning, but he's just as furious and impulsive as Hostine. Regardless, the Boltons will be caught between the Wildlings and the Baratheons and crushed. One of George R.R. Martin's notes within his script for Season 4 Episode 2 of Game of Thrones mentions that Ramsay's hounds must be showcased for a future Hound versus Direwolf confrontation. Perhaps Jon Snow will come south with Ghost and fight the Bastard of Bolton. Bastard Bowl might actually be canon, who knew? Oh, and another fun note. In the Storm of Swords prologue, Chet, the son of a leechman, bemoans his miserable Night's Watch existence. One line states, "There'd be no lord's life for the leechman's son, no keep to call his own, no wives nor crowns, only a wildling's sword in his belly, and then an unmarked grave." This could be sneaky foreshadowing for Ramsay, the son of the Leech Lord himself. Overall, this is the best case scenario for Stannis in the Winds of Winter. He takes Winterfell, crushes the Boltons, and unites the North under the flaming heart of R'hllor. What comes next? Does he focus on the threat beyond the wall? Does he strike southwards to seize the Iron Throne? Will he name Jon Snow or perhaps Rickon Stark as the Lord of Winterfell? Will the Northern Lords betray him and demand a king in the North instead? Oh, I know, maybe one of the greatest military commanders in Westeros will stumble into a siege without formations, scouts or any equipment, lose to endlessly spawning Boltons, and get beheaded by Brienne. Yep, that's definitely it. I've got to give a shout out to the theorists Bryndon Beefish and Cantus, whose work inspired this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is this how the battle's going to go down? And which other theories should I animate? This video was sponsored by my amazing patrons at patreon.com/fantasyhaven. You can also support the channel by liking, subscribing, and checking out the merch at fantasyhavenmerch.com. Here's a mug. Look at this mug. Special thanks to my high tier patrons, Andre, Alex the Pagan, Caden, Colshot, Devcole, Jack, Itchaboi, and Morphy.